Hi everyone, and welcome into Elpis's Campfire Singalong lesson. In case you don't know who I am, my name is Elpis, and I'm a VTuber known in certain communities. But also outside of that, I'm actually a trained musician with a degree in vocal performance. So I thought I'd share some of that knowledge with you guys today. Let's start with the basics together. These are called staffs. The first thing we want to look at the staff is what's called the time signature, where it says 4/4. The top number is how many of each note there are, and the bottom number is how many make up a measure. It sounds confusing, but wait, this one basically means is that 4 quarter notes in each measure. And what's a quarter note, you might be asking? Who are you? Why are you on my screen? We'll get to that later. These are the most common note lengths. So first, on the far left, we have a quarter note. Then we have an 8th note and a 16th note. Technically, that goes on ad infinitum. They just get smaller. But these are the ones you'll usually see. On top of that, we have half notes and whole notes. Looking back, the time signature just means that there are 4 quarter notes per measure. Easy. Another one you'll commonly see is 3/4 time, which is literally just 3 quarter notes per measure. You'll also see it often expressed as 8/8 notes, which you can see on the far right here, but they practically mean the exact same thing. You'll also see rests from time to time. These do have different lengths, just like the notes. So here we have quarter, 8th, and 16th, along with half and whole. The way you tell half from whole is half touches the bottom line, whole touches the top line. That's literally the only difference and has never ever confused me. Anyways, moving on. Let's get into actually reading the notes though. Here you'll see what we call a treble clef. The way you read this is off of the lines, "Every good boy does fine." That's technically like the classic way to do it. I prefer "Everyone get bent, you damn." The way you tell the notes in the caps is going to be face. So FACE. This is what's called a key signature. You'll sometimes see these, but not always. And when all they mean is you're either going to make the notes on those lines and caps flat or sharp. These are flats, so you would make B and E flat. This is a really common one, by the way. Now you may be asking, how the fuck does this actually relate to like piano or something? Well, all pianos have notes, which I'll show here, and the distances between them are called either half steps or whole steps. The best way to tell if it's a half step or a whole step is to literally count out the keys. So if we go from C to C sharp, since it only moves once, it's gonna be a half step. But if we go from E to F sharp, since we're doing 1 and then 2, that's gonna be a whole step. Now, the gap between the notes, the intervals, as they're called, do actually have names and do come up a lot when you're writing music, but it's not as important when you're actually just reading music. Another thing that you don't really have to worry about when we're talking about singing is chords. Now, just to briefly look at it, we have 2 chords here. The first one would be major because of the intervals between the 3 notes, but the second one would be minor because of the distance between the 3 notes. And honestly, the best way to tell major from minor is from hearing it. You can always hear the difference between a major and a minor chord. There are other types of chords, but they're confusing and they hurt my brain, and I'm a singer, so we're not going to touch on those. Let's listen to some actual music together. In case you've never heard before, this is Camptown Races. I've already gone through and labeled all the notes, but let's go through them again just so we can all see what we're looking at. So this first note, since it is on the second gap, and if you remember, F, A, so this is going to be an A. This one is in the exact same spot, so it's going to be another A. Now, this one is back in the first spot, which makes it an F. But if we look at the key signature, we see that Fs are actually sharp, so this is an F sharp. And then we go back to A. Then we're going to move up to this line here. This line is going to make it a B, because every good boy does fine, so every good boy, B. Down to A again, and down to F sharp. And then we go to an F sharp again, and then an E sharp. This is something I did forget to cover. If we ever see a little dot next to a note like this, you just add half of its length to it. So because this note is a half note, it's 2, but once we add the dot to it, it becomes 3 beats long. And then we go F sharp, E sharp. Coming down to here, it's really similar again. A, F sharp, A, B, A. Even the pros make mistakes, guys. And then F sharp, E, F sharp, E, and then down to a D. If it's outside of the ledger here, you just count alphabetically. It's A through G, and it just repeats both ways. So since it's one below the E, it's a D. Let's go through and sing it together. Camptown ladies sing this song, doo-dah, doo-dah. Camptown racetracks 5 miles long, oh, doo-dah day. And there, now we've read some music together. Now this is very simple as far as music goes. Now here's another song that everyone should know. It's a Campfire song from SpongeBob. Now, this one is a little bit more complicated looking because we have the piano underneath. But if we're just singing it, then we actually don't need to worry about that at all. Now, let's go ahead and listen to it just so we can all remember what it sounds like. Okay, very fun. Let's take a close look at it, though. Quick note from the future. Eighth notes can look like either this when they don't have any other notes nearby, or they can be tied together with a bar like this. 16th notes can do the same thing, but they'll have 2 lines like we can see here. So let's take a closer look and go through the notes again. So first things first, we have a note on the first gap, so that makes it an F. Next up, we have it on the 4th line, which would be every good boy does, so a D. And then that's actually going to stay a D for a while, up until about here. And now this is what I was talking about earlier on the other song. If it has a dot, it has another half of its length added. So instead of just being an 8th note, it's an 8th note with a 16th note tied to it. So we have that here. Okay, and then we have a C here. So let's go ahead and label that one. And then another C. And then finally, we have a B. But because if we look at the signature, all B's are flat, this is actually a B flat. Then we're going to hop back up to a C real quick. Remember, F, A, C, so C. And then we're actually going to go back down to B here. B flat, I should say. And then we're going down to here. Now, this one, let's count again. Every good, so this one is going to be a G, actually. Finally, hopping back up to B. That is not the button I wanted to press. Now we're going back down to an F here. And then once we hit the end of a bar, we actually, I forgot to mention this earlier, just jump down to the next one. Let's get all this out of the way a little bit and keep going. So this one, every good boy does fine. So we're at an F here again. So both of these are Fs. They're an octave apart, which is means they're the same note, just one's higher than the other. And you can hear that if you hear them next to each other. They do sound same, just one sounds higher. And then more Fs. Up until here, where we get to an E. But again, because the key signature has a flat at that gap, we are going to make that an E flat. And finally, this one here is going to be every good boy does, so a D. There we go. Oh, there we go. Then we are back up to E's. And back up to an F again. Then down to another D. And then now we're down to a C again. F, A, C. And then down to a B flat again. Grab that real quick from up here. Now here we have a D again. Now we're comping down to a C again. And it's actually going to be a C again here. And finally a B flat. Now we're actually hopping back up to a C here. And then we're going to go to another B flat here. And then down to a G here. And then down to a G here. Another B flat. And then another G. Come on. And then finally down to an F again. Then we're hopping back up to a D again. And then a C. Sorry, I just labeled those without thinking about it. So we have a D, C, B flat, D, C, and then a B flat. And then finally up to a C. And we'll finish notating there, but let's just go through step by step, okay? So we can see here, this actually says to go pretty fast. That's what allegro moderato means. This is a more concrete number. This is more of a feeling of a number. In case you wanted to make music more complicated than it already is. A lot of it's based on feelings. But this is a concrete number that sounds about something like this. But we're going to go a lot slower than that, just so we can actually sing it all together. So let's sing it together. This one is going to be a little bit out of range for me, so you're going to hear me change my octave once it gets a little bit higher. But if this is in range for you, you do not have to worry about doing that. So let's listen here. Let's gather round the campfire and sing our campfire song. Our CampfireSong song. And if you don't think that we can't sing it faster, then you're wrong. But it'll help if you just sing along. So that's generally what it sounds like. And these have both been pretty simple pieces of music, believe it or not. This is a little bit more complex. We're not going to go through it, but just to kind of show what music can look like, this is something I wrote a couple years ago for a music class, and you can actually hear it playing in the background right now. But that's generally all you have to worry about to do basic singing. Obviously, with practice comes perfect in these kind of things. So if you want to look more into this, I will actually include in the description of this video some resources, including a textbook that I kind of use as supplemental stuff during my actual musical education. On top of that, sorry if I get anything wrong. I'm actually a little bit out of practice in singing, and I definitely never learned how to teach this stuff properly. But I hope you guys all walk away from this with at least a little bit of some fun music knowledge, and that we can do some campfire songs together. Alright guys, see you later!